The midnight air bit at Lily's skin as she stood trembling on the frost-covered ground, the door slamming behind her with such force that the windows rattled. Just moments before, she had been curled up in the small closet she called a bedroom, when her stepmother burst in, eyes wild with rage over a broken teacup. Now, the 12-year-old girl found herself outside in nothing but her thin nightgown, the cold earth beneath her bare feet, and not even a pair of shoes to protect them. Don't come back until you've learned some respect. The words still echoed in her ears as tears streamed down her face. 2 years had passed since the car accident that took her parents. 2 years of enduring her father's new wife, who had shown her true colors the moment the funeral ended. The small rural town of Maplewood slept peacefully around her, unaware of the injustice unfolding on Cherry Lane. With winter approaching, the nights were getting longer and colder. Lily hugged herself, her breath forming small clouds in the air as she realized the terrible truth her stepmother had no intention of letting her back in. This wasn't just another punishment. This was abandonment. Music intensifies. What Lily couldn't possibly know that night was that this moment would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey, 100 days of walking barefoot through hardship and hope, a journey that would transform not just her life, but the lives of everyone she would meet along the way. The first night was the hardest. Lily huddled beneath the large oak tree in the town park, shivering uncontrollably as she tried to process what had happened. Had her stepmother really locked her out for good? Surely she would calm down by morning. But deep in her heart, Lily knew the truth. Margaret had been looking for an excuse, any excuse, to be rid of her. When dawn broke, Lily made her way to the only place she could think of, her old elementary school. Behind the building was an abandoned groundskeeper's shed that the children sometimes used for hide and seek. It wasn't much, but the walls would at least block the wind. "I just need to survive until I figure something out," she whispered to herself, pushing back the tears that threatened to overwhelm her. The shed became her sanctuary for those first few days. She would emerge only when necessary, scrounging for food in dumpsters behind restaurants and drinking from public water fountains. Each morning, she would check her stepmother's house from a distance, hoping to see some sign that she was welcome back. But the curtains remained drawn, and the spare key that had always been hidden under the flower pot was gone. As days passed, the skin of her feet toughened, but not without cost. Blisters formed and burst. Small cuts appeared from sharp stones and twigs, and each step became a reminder of her vulnerability. Yet somehow, this physical pain helped distract from the deeper wound inside her heart. On the 5th day, while searching for food behind a local diner, Lily encountered Mr. and Mrs. Chun, an elderly couple who owned the restaurant. "Child, what are you doing out here?" Mrs. Chun asked, concern etched on her face as she noticed Lily's dirty nightgown and bare feet. Lily tried to run, but exhaustion and hunger had weakened her. Mrs. Chun gently took her hand and led her through the back door into the warm kitchen. Over a bowl of hot soup, the first proper meal she'd had in days, Lily found herself telling them everything. The Chens exchanged worried glances. "You should stay with us tonight," Mr. Chen said firmly. "Tomorrow we can help you contact the authorities." But Lily shook her head vigorously. "Please don't. My stepmother is friends with the sheriff. She'll tell them I ran away and was stealing. She's done it before. They'll just take me back to her." The memory surfaced unbidden, her previous attempt to get help from a teacher, and how skillfully Margaret had twisted the story, making Lily seem like a troubled, attention-seeking child. The bruises had been explained away as a result of Lily's clumsiness, and the teacher had apologized to Margaret for the misunderstanding. That night, in the small room above the Chen's restaurant, Lily dreamed of her parents, her mother's gentle smile as she tucked her in, her father's strong hands as he lifted her onto his shoulders, the love that had once surrounded her like a protective blanket. "I miss you so much," she whispered to the darkness. When she awoke the next morning, a realization had formed in her mind, clear as crystal. She couldn't stay in Maplewood, but she wasn't entirely alone in the world. Somewhere, several towns over, lived her grandmother, her mother's mother, whom she hadn't seen since the funeral. Margaret had cut off contact, claiming the elderly woman wanted nothing to do with them. But Lily knew better now. She knew what Margaret was capable of. The Chens gave her what they could: a small backpack with some food, a water bottle, a change of clothes, and an old blanket. But they had no shoes that would fit her small feet. "I'm sorry, child," Mrs. Chin said sadly. "Perhaps we can find some tomorrow." But Lily knew she couldn't wait. Margaret had friends all over town. It wouldn't be long before someone recognized her. "Thank you for everything," she said, hugging the kind couple. "I'll be okay." As she set off down the road leading out of town, the morning sun warming her back, Lily made a promise to herself. She would find her grandmother or die trying. What she didn't know was that this journey would stretch to 100 days, and that her bare feet would carry her through experiences that would change her forever. The road stretched before Lily like a promise, each step taking her further from her past and closer to an uncertain future. The map Mr. Chun had drawn suggested her grandmother's town of Riverdale was about 80 miles away, an impossible distance for a child on foot, but Lily had no choice but to try. "One step at a time," she murmured, a phrase her father had often used. The memory of him gave her strength as she walked along the shoulder of the country road, careful to hide whenever a car approached. By sunset of her first day of travel, she had made it only 7 miles, her feet raw and bleeding. She found shelter in an old barn, the hay providing some comfort as she wrapped her injured feet in strips torn from her spare shirt. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by strange noises and the cold that seeped through her thin blanket. The next morning brought rain, a gentle drizzle that soon turned into a downpour. Lily pulled her backpack over her head and continued walking, each muddy step more painful than the last. By midday, she was soaked through, shivering uncontrollably. It was then that a pickup truck slowed beside her. A middle-aged woman leaned out the window, concern evident on her weathered face. "Honey, you're soaked to the bone. Where are you headed in this weather?" Lily hesitated, fear and desperation warring within her. Finally, the cold made a decision for her. "I'm going to visit my grandmother in Riverdale," she said, the half-truth coming easily. The woman who introduced herself as Martha drove Lily 10 miles down the road to a crossroads with a small gas station and diner. "This is as far as I go, sweetie. You should call someone to pick you up from here." Lily thanked her and pretended to head into the diner, but as soon as Martha's truck disappeared around the bend, she continued on foot. The brief respite had given her blisters time to stiffen, and each new step was agony. That night, she slept under a highway overpass, the concrete cold but dry. Her food was running low, already the sandwiches Mrs. Chin packed now soggy and unappealing. Lily forced herself to eat half of one, saving the rest for tomorrow. As she drifted off to sleep, memories of her former life floated through her mind. Her bedroom with the yellow curtains her mother had sewn. The backyard swing where her father would push her so high she felt like she was flying. The kitchen table where they ate dinner together every night, sharing stories of their day. "I will find my way back to family," she whispered into the darkness. "I promise." Days blended together as Lily continued her journey. Her original nightgown was now wrapped around her feet as makeshift bandages, replaced by the clothes the Chens had given her. She learned to walk on the balls of her feet where the skin was less raw, to rest frequently, and to soak her feet in cool streams whenever possible. She also learned which houses might offer help and which to avoid. The neat gardens with children's toys scattered about often meant a sympathetic mother might offer a sandwich. Farms with clotheslines might provide an opportunity for a borrowed shirt when no one was looking, something she did with great reluctance, leaving behind heartfelt notes of apology and promises to repay someday. On her 10th day of travel, Lily encountered her first major obstacle, a man who offered her a ride only to ask questions that made her skin crawl. When he put his hand on her knee, she threw open the door at a stop sign and ran into the woods, heart pounding, not stopping until she was certain he wasn't following. That night, hiding in a dense thicket, Lily cried herself to sleep. But when morning came, she stood up, brushed herself off, and continued walking. Something was changing inside her, a hardness forming around her heart. Yes, but also a determination she never knew she possessed. "I will make it," she told herself with each painful step. "I have to." Little did she know, her journey had barely begun. By the 3rd week of her journey, Lily had settled into a rhythm. Walk until it hurt too much, rest until the throbbing subsided, then walk again. Her feet once soft and pale, were now callous and dark with dirt that no amount of stream water could fully remove. The tender blisters had hardened into thick patches of skin, nature's own shoes forming slowly but inadequately. The weather turned colder as November deepened. Frost covered the ground each morning, and Lily's breath formed clouds in the air as she walked. Food was becoming a serious concern. The supplies from the Chens had long since run out, and she survived now on a combination of handouts, wild berries she recognized from books, and occasionally, when desperation drove her, items borrowed from unattended market stalls or farmhouse window sills. Each theft, no matter how small, weighed heavily on her conscience. "I'll pay it all back someday," she promised, leaving behind small tokens of thanks when she could a beautiful stone, a carefully woven grass bracelet, or simply a note with a heartfelt thank you. On her 25th day, exhausted and hungrier than she'd ever been, Lily stumbled upon the Sullivan farm. Mrs. Sullivan found her collapsed near their chicken coop, trying to gather the strength to continue. "Lord have mercy," the woman gasped, calling for her husband. "Tom, come quick." The Sullivan family took Lily in without question. They fed her, gave her a warm bed, and tended her feet with special salve Mrs. Sullivan made herself from herbs in her garden. "Those poor feet have carried you far," she murmured as she gently applied the medicine. "But they need rest now." For 2 weeks, Lily stayed with the Sullivans, helping with farm chores to earn her keep. Their daughter Emma, about Lily's age, became a fast friend the first Lily had made since her ordeal began. It was Emma who noticed how Lily still winced with each step. On Lily's 40th day away from Maplewood, Emma presented her with a gift of her own outgrown boots. "They might be a little big," Emma said shyly, "but with thick socks, they should work." Lily couldn't hold back her tears as she slipped her feet into the boots, the first proper shoes she'd worn in over a month. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, hugging Emma tightly. But her joy was short-lived. The very next day, while helping the fields, a man Lily didn't recognize drove up to speak with Mr. Sullivan. From the distance, she could see him showing a paper with what looked like her face on it. Heart pounding, Lily slipped away unseen, retreating to the barn where she quickly gathered her few belongings. She couldn't risk bringing trouble to this kind family, and she couldn't risk being found and sent back to Margaret. She left a note thanking them for everything, apologizing for her sudden departure. With tears streaming down her face, she set off once more toward Riverdale, Emma's boots protecting her feet for the first time in her journey. But fate had one more cruel twist in store. 3 days later, while sleeping in a roadside ditch, someone stole the boots right off her feet so silently that Lily never woke until morning, when she found herself once again barefoot. The cold earth beneath her soles a harsh reminder of her vulnerability. The loss of the boots was nearly her breaking point. Lily sat on the ground and sobbed, great heaving cries that seemed to come from the very core of her being. All the fear, pain, and loneliness of the past weeks poured out in a torrent of tears. When she finally quieted, hiccuping and exhausted, something strange had happened inside her. A stillness, a clarity she hadn't experienced before. In that moment of utter despair, Lily found something unexpected peace. "They're just shoes," she whispered to herself. "And these are just feet. I am more than my pain." It was as though her parents' spirits had somehow reached across the divide to comfort her. She remembered her mother's favorite saying, "The darkest night will end and the sun will rise." And her father's constant reminder, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters." With new resolve, Lily stood and continued her journey. Her bare feet resumed their steady rhythm on the earth, but something had shifted in her heart. She began to notice beauty around her, the way sunlight filtered through autumn leaves, the kindness in a stranger's smile, the taste of fresh water from a clear stream. She also began to realize that in some ways, her difficult journey was a gift. She was learning to rely on herself, to trust her instincts, to find strength she never knew she possessed. Each painful step was teaching her something valuable. 50 days, she counted one evening, marking the days on a small calendar she found discarded in a gas station. Halfway to 100. Though she had no way of knowing how much longer her journey would take, the number felt significant. Something told her that her story would be measured in hundreds, 100 days of walking barefoot toward a future she could barely imagine, but somehow knew was waiting for her. The winter arrived in full force as Lily crossed the 60-day mark of her journey. Snow dusted the ground, then accumulated, turning her path into a treacherous white expanse that numbed her feet to the point where she no longer felt the cuts and bruises. In some ways, the numbness was a blessing. Pain had been her constant companion for so long that its absence, even through freezing, felt like relief. But the cold brought new dangers. Lily knew enough about frostbite to recognize the warning signs. When her toes turned white and lost feeling completely, fear gripped her heart. She needed shelter, real shelter, or she might lose more than just her journey. Her body, already thin from weeks of inadequate nutrition, began to succumb to the elements. Her progress slowed to just a few miles each day. Fever came in waves, leaving her disoriented and weak. Still, she pushed forward, following the road signs of Riverdale, now just 30 miles away according to the last marker she'd seen. Just a little further, she told herself through chattering teeth. Grandma is waiting. She has to be. On the 65th day, during a particularly heavy snowfall, Lily collapsed by the roadside, her vision blurred, dark spots dancing before her eyes as her body finally surrendered to exhaustion, malnutrition, and exposure. Her last conscious thought was of her parents' faces, smiling at her from some distant, warm place. "I'm sorry," she whispered as darkness claimed her. "I tried." The sound of guitar was the first thing Lily became aware of as consciousness returned, gentle strings plucked in a soothing melody. Then warmth, blessed warmth, surrounding her like an embrace. She opened her eyes to find herself in a small, cozy room, a fire crackling in a wood stove nearby, and a man in his 30s sitting in a chair, quietly playing his guitar. "Welcome back," he said when he noticed her stirring. "You had us worried." The man introduced himself as Daniel, a traveling musician who had found her unconscious by the road and brought her to this community, a small artist colony called Harmony Glen. For days, the residents had taken turns sitting with her as fever ravaged her small body. They had treated her frostbitten feet with herbal remedies and kept her hydrated with broths and teas. "You've been here for almost 2 weeks," Daniel explained gently. "Your feet, they'll heal, but you need to stay off them for a while longer." 2 weeks. Lily did the math. She was now at day 79 of her journey, and still miles from her destination. Tears of frustration welled in her eyes. "I need to get to Riverdale," she whispered hoarsely. "My grandmother is there." Daniel's expression changed, concern etching lines around his eyes. "Riverdale? I passed through there about a month ago." There was talk of an elderly woman who had moved away after selling her house. Something about going to live with family in the city. The news hit Lily like a physical blow. Had her grandmother given up on ever seeing her again? Had she moved somewhere Lily could never find her? For the first time since beginning her journey, true despair settled over her. That night, alone in the small bedroom the community had provided, Lily faced her darkest moment. If her grandmother was gone, what was the point of continuing? Where would she go? What future could possibly await a barefoot orphan with nothing to her name? As if an answer, a memory surfaced her mother's voice, reading from her favorite book. "Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." Lily touched the small locket around her neck, the only possession she had managed to keep from her old life, containing tiny photos of her parents. "What would you want me to do?" she asked them silently. The answer came not in words, but in a feeling of certainty that giving up was not an option. Her parents had never taught her to surrender, only to adapt and overcome. With that realization came another. In her desperate focus on reaching her grandmother, she had missed something important. During her journey, she had touched lives and been touched by them in return. The Chens, the Sullivans, and now the people of Harmony Glen each had shown her kindness without obligation. Each had reminded her that goodness existed in the world. Perhaps her journey wasn't just about reaching a destination. Perhaps it was about discovering who she truly was along the way. As she drifted off to sleep, a plan began forming in her mind. She would continue to Riverdale, regardless of whether her grandmother was still there. Someone in town would know where she had gone. And even if that trail went cold, Lily would find another path forward. She had survived 79 days of unimaginable hardship. She could survive whatever came next. For the first time in weeks, Lily slept peacefully, her dreams filled not with fear, but with possibility. When Lily finally left Harmony Glen on day 85, she was transformed in ways both visible and invisible. The community had nursed her back to health, fed her proper meals, and given her warm clothes better suited to the winter weather. They had even crafted special foot coverings for her not-quite shoes, but thick fabric wrappings reinforced with leather patches, tied securely around her ankles. But the most profound changes were within. During her recovery, she had shared her story with the artists and craftspeople of the colony, and each had given her something invaluable in return, not just physical gifts, but lessons. Daniel the musician had taught her that music lived inside everyone, even in the rhythm of footsteps on a long journey. Maya the potter had shown her how broken things could be remade into something beautiful. Old Thomas, who carved intricate figures from wood, had demonstrated how patience could transform raw material into art. "Remember," Thomas had told her as he pressed a small wooden bird into her palm the morning of her departure, "you are both the carver and the wood. Your journey is shaping you, but you decide the final form." Lily carried these gifts tangible and intangible as she resumed her path to Riverdale. Her pace was steadier now, her body stronger, her resolve unshakable. The foot coverings protected her from the worst of the cold and rough terrain, though they required frequent repairs and adjustments. Along the way, something remarkable began to happen. Instead of just receiving help, Lily started offering it as well. When she encountered a lost child in a small-town market, she stayed with him until his frantic mother was found. When an elderly man struggled to carry firewood to his cabin, Lily stopped to assist, despite her own journey's urgency. Each act of kindness seemed to lighten her own burden somehow. Each connection with another human being reinforced her growing belief that while the world contained cruelty like that of her stepmother, it also held immeasurable goodness. Word began to spread through the rural communities. She passed stories of a barefoot girl with wise eyes and a helping heart. Some offered her rides that shaved miles off her journey. Others provided meals or supplies without being asked. A young cobbler even tried to make her proper shoes, though they proved too rigid for feet that had grown accustomed to freedom. "Your feet have their own wisdom now," the cobbler said, examining the thick calluses and surprisingly strong arches Lily had developed. "They've learned to read the earth in a way most people have forgotten." By day 95, Lily reached the outskirts of Riverdale. Her heart raced with anticipation and fear. What would she find? Would anyone remember her grandmother? Would there be any trace of where she had gone? The small town was preparing for Christmas, lights and decorations adorning the main street. Lily approached the bakery, drawn by both the warmth visible through the windows and the memory of her grandmother's love for fresh bread. "Excuse me," she said to the middle-aged woman behind the counter, summoning her courage. "I'm looking for Elizabeth Harper. She's my grandmother. I heard she might have moved away." The baker's eyes widened, her flour-covered hands freezing mid-task. "Elizabeth Harper's granddaughter? Little Lily? My God, child, is it really you?" Tears sprang to Lily's eyes at hearing her name spoken with such recognition. "You know me? Everyone in town knows about you. Your grandmother has been searching for you for almost 2 years. Ever since that awful woman, your stepmother, told her you wanted nothing to do with her. Elizabeth never believed it, of course. She's been putting up posters, calling police stations, everything." The world seemed to tilt beneath Lily's feet. "My grandmother's been looking for me? All this time?" "Yes, dear. And she hasn't moved away, not permanently. She's been traveling between here and the city, working with a lawyer to try to get custody of you. She just got back yesterday for the holidays." The baker pointed to a small blue house at the end of the street. "That's her place right there. Go, child. Go to her now." In a daze, Lily walked the final distance of her journey, the shortest of miles, but perhaps the longest in meaning. Her bare feet, wrapped in their makeshift coverings, carried her up the path to the little blue house with white trim. Trembling, she raised her hand and knocked on the door. The woman who answered was older than Lily remembered. her hair whiter, new lines etched around her eyes that widened in shock and then filled with tears as she recognized the child standing before her. "Lily?" she whispered, disbelief and hope warring in her voice. "My Lily?" "Grandma," Lily managed to say before her grandmother pulled her into an embrace so fierce it seemed to make up for every moment of the past 2 years. "I've been looking everywhere for you," Elizabeth sobbed, stroking Lily's hair. "That woman told me you didn't want to see me, but I never believed it. I never stopped searching. And I walked 100 days to find you," Lily said. The significance of the number suddenly clear to her. Today was the 100th day since she had been thrown out at midnight, a symmetry that felt like destiny. As her grandmother ushered her inside, out of the cold and into the warmth of home, Lily knew her journey had reached its end. But in another way, it was just beginning. The reunion with her grandmother brought Lily a happiness she had almost forgotten was possible. For days, they barely left each other's side, sharing meals, stories, and the simple joy of being together. Elizabeth was horrified by what Margaret had done and marveled at Lily's incredible journey. "You walked all this way? Barefoot?" she kept asking, tenderly examining Lily's calloused feet with a mixture of sorrow and pride. "I had no choice," Lily would reply. "But I'm here now. That's all that matters." They settled into a peaceful routine, Lily gradually adjusting to sleeping in a real bed, eating regular meals, and not having to guard against constant danger. Elizabeth enrolled her in a local school, buy her new clothes, books, and yes, proper shoes, though Lily found them confining after so long without them. But their newfound peace was shattered on a snowy January morning when a police car pulled up outside the Blue House. Margaret stepped out, her face set in lines of righteous indignation as she spoke to the officer beside her. "That's her," Lily heard Margaret say through the window. "That's my stepdaughter who ran away. I've been worried sick." Fear gripped Lily's heart, squeezing like a vice. "Grandma," she whispered urgently. "She's found me." Elizabeth's expression hardened as she looked out at the woman who had abused her granddaughter. "Don't worry, Lily. She won't take you away. Not ever again." The confrontation that followed will remain etched in Lily's memory forever. Margaret's false tears and accusations, the officer's initial skepticism toward Lily and her grandmother, and then the turning point. The neighbors began to gather. First came the baker, then the postman, then others. People who had heard Lily's story, people who had watched Elizabeth's tireless search for her granddaughter over the past 2 years. That woman abandoned her child. The baker declared firmly, "Everyone in town knows Elizabeth has been searching for Lily since her parents died." "And look at the child's feet," added the cobbler, who had been trying to craft shoes that would be comfortable for Lily's transformed feet. "Those aren't the feet of a child who ran away on a whim. Those are the feet of someone who walked 100 days to escape abuse." One by one, the townspeople spoke up, forming a protective circle around Lily and her grandmother. Even the officer began to look at Margaret with suspicion rather than sympathy. When Elizabeth produced a legal paper, she had been preparing documents proving Margaret's neglect, witnesses who had seen the bruises, school reports documenting Lily's declining condition under Margaret's care. Margaret's facade finally cracked. "She was nothing but trouble," she spat, her true nature revealed at last. "Her father left everything to her in trust, nothing for me. What was I supposed to do?" The silence that followed her outburst was deafening. In those few words, Margaret had confirmed everything Lily had endured and exposed her own motives. The officer gently asked Lily if she would be willing to make a formal statement. With her grandmother's hand firmly in hers, she agreed. "I will tell the truth," she said, looking directly at her stepmother for the first time without fear. "All of it." In the weeks that followed, Margaret faced criminal charges for child abandonment and financial exploitation. The trust fund Lily's father had established for her was placed under Elizabeth's guardianship until Lily came of age. And most importantly, the court granted Elizabeth full legal custody of her granddaughter. Justice had been served, but for Lily, the greater victory was internal. She had faced her darkest fear confronting Margaret and emerged stronger. The barefoot journey that had begun in terror had ended in triumph. On the evening after the custody hearing, Lily sat with her grandmother on the porch of the Blue House, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "Do you think Mom and Dad would be proud of me?" Lily asked softly. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears as she pulled her granddaughter close. Oh, my darling, they would be so proud. You have your mother's compassion and your father's determination. You carried them with you every step of your journey. Lily touched the locket around her neck, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. I think I always will. Spring came to Riverdale, melting away the last traces of winter. In Elizabeth Harper's garden, new life pushed through the soil, tender green shoots reaching for the sun, much like her granddaughter was blossoming in her new life. Lily had settled well into the local school, making friends despite her initial shyness. The girl who walked barefoot for 100 days now stood tall, carried within her strength few could comprehend. Those 100 days had transformed her from a frightened child into someone who understood that suffering could be endured, that kindness could be found in unexpected places, and that hope was worth holding on to even in the darkest moments. On warm afternoons, Lily often walked barefoot through her grandmother's garden, her healed feet connecting her to the earth that had both challenged and supported her journey. Each step a reminder that she had survived, that she had persevered, that she had found her way home.